Today's episode, we're diving into the build versus buy debate that has redefined back office operations in the equipment finance industry. We'll explore how the post-pandemic landscape has shifted the focus toward business continuity, the challenges of retaining specialized talent, and why many leaders are now choosing to shed fixed costs in favor of scalable third-party servicing models. But before we begin, I want to tell you about today's podcast sponsor, Suite by Monitor. Suite by Monitor has the data, research, insights, and information to power better business decisions. There's no content resource for equipment finance leaders of all levels that can make this kind of weekly impact on your business and in your career. You can join Suite for only $150 a year or $15 a month, or get your whole team subscribed at a discounted rate that delivers next level value. Visit suitebymonitor.com to learn more. Now let's get started with the podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm Rita Garwood, Editor-in-Chief of Monitor. Joining me on the podcast today is Joe Andrews. Joe is with Great America Portfolio Services. Joe, thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So for those who might not be familiar with you, can you just give us a brief overview of where you fit into the whole equipment leasing ecosystem?
Sure. First of all, just a quick introduction on myself. As Rita mentioned, Joe Andrews. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of Great America Portfolio Services Division. Started my career about 38 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun, with a company called Lion Financial Services. I was heading up their servicing entity, which eventually was sold to US Bank. And then in 2010, I came over to Great America to lead their third-party outsourced servicing platform. So that's a little bit of background on myself. As for the business overview of how we fit into the equipment leasing, we're a lease and loan agreement outsourced service provider specializing in third-party servicing for the equipment finance industry. We provide an operational platform that allows our clients to outsource their servicing needs without relinquishing control of their customers. Clients leverage the knowledge of our people, the operating processes that have been established for many, many years, 33 to be exact, and the system platform. For us, an ideal client is someone who has identified a need for servicing and wants to reduce costs and operational barriers so they can concentrate on their core strengths. Our clients include, obviously, banks, leasing entities, and the captives out there.
Great. Well, thanks for giving us that overview. So I know everybody listening to this has heard the term outsourced servicing at one time or another, but it can mean different things to different people depending on, where they may sit. How do you define it in the context of today's market?
Yeah, so you're exactly correct in that every client has a different need perspective when it comes to outsourcing their servicing. So for us, that's the important thing we go through a needs analysis discussion with all prospective clients to really understand their objectives and desired outcomes of an outsourced servicing model. Knowing that, then we provide a servicing solution that allows us to become really an extension of their company, which is important for us. We want to act as if we're part of our client's company. So we are them in the eyes of their customers. Our outsourced servicing provides tailored solutions related to the people, the processes, and the systems. All of our clients utilize our systems in some form or fashion. Others have, our people represent their brand to service their customers in some form. Then, depending upon the scope of services that someone needs or wants, will really determine what processes are used to perform those services on their behalf. Some of our clients utilize all of our servicing solutions, and some only have us perform various duties. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of what I'll call tailor-made solutions. The constant is, however, that we always provide our systems to house their contracts. So the contracts are on our system, and then we perform certain duties, they perform certain duties, et cetera. So our goal as an outsourced servicer is to become an extension of the client's organization, as I mentioned earlier, understanding who the customers are, what type of financing they offer, and their business concept in general. And then, through our people, process, and systems, we delivered that customized, measured value to meet their objectives and expectations of an outsourced servicing relationship. So, to answer your question at a high level, it depends a lot, and it's really based on what the client's outsourced desires and objectives are.
Well, that gives us a good overview, so I appreciate that. So, when we met to plan this podcast, you mentioned that before the pandemic, outsourcing was generally accepted, but after it's become much more prevalent. What specific variables are driving companies toward third-party servicing today?
Yeah, in general, the relevant experience of COVID are really what are driving people to third party servicing platforms. For example, at the time the pandemic hit, everyone was in a scramble mode of how do I implement a business continuity plan in short order? How do I get people working from a safe environment, et cetera? I feel that was probably the major distraction that a lot of leasing companies encountered, which caused them to, obviously prepare or seek a different alternative from as an outsourcer. Another theme that I continue to hear is that although their business stalled or was paused, they still realize the same fixed cost of supporting a fully operational in-house platform structure. So we'll talk about that a little bit more here. And then a final prevalent theme was getting employees back to work and coping with the new world we had to adapt to. A lot of the leaders, owners vividly remember the time, commitment, and drama of those experiences and recognize through an outsource arrangement partner, a lot of that would fall on the company like Great America Portfolio Services. They wouldn't necessarily need to figure out ways to have their customers receive an invoice, get a collection call, pull an ACH. Instead, they simply had to, call us up and say, "Hey, where are you guys at in the process, et cetera? Are you guys up and running?" So, we've been through other business continuity events. So during COVID, we felt confident in our abilities to execute, and within, a relatively short time frame, 4 hours to be exact, we were up and running, servicing our customers. So as an outsourced provider, it's our responsibility and we owned it. The other benefactors of utilizing outsourcing is, a lot of the times the cost arrangement of an outsourced partner is based on activity. And if the activity was paused or slowed during the COVID months, then the relative costs were reduced too. So the value of having a strong outsourced partnership was easily recognized during these COVID months. And that's what has made it much more popular in today's environment.
That makes sense. Everything's taken care of. As you said, it's adjustable. So that's a great benefit as well. So I know that we've heard about, companies having a lot of difficulty finding and retaining talent. That was like a huge thing right after the pandemic, and we still are hearing about it now. And then, of course, the shift to remote work that we all went through during the pandemic as well. So things changed from build versus buy. It changed the calculation for leasing companies regarding their back office operations. How has that played out into your business? What have you seen on your end?
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. I'll start out by that. But at Great America, we've had to get very strategic and creative in our recruiting and hiring practices. Plus, we had to prioritize employee retention practices. As I mentioned, it wasn't easy, but I feel we were very responsive and proactive in our tactics on both fronts. After all, we as an outsourcer, we're only as good as our people. So, that's one of the main contributors in the value proposition to our clients. So, we took immediate action on this, and we're currently 50% work from home and 50% in the office within a 2-week period. That provides a lot of flexibility for our employees and is competitive in the markets where we have our office locations. Couple that, we've tracked and we still do track the production. And surprisingly, our employees are as productive for the most part while working from home. It varies by employee, but for the most part, on average, we've stayed very productive and efficient. Our service levels likewise have remained consistent and actually are enhanced a bit. And that really is contributed to the fact that the old saying of happy employees mean happy clients, customers. So for cohesiveness and collaboration, we do ask employees to come into the office every Tuesday for what we call a Better Together Day. We often provide a breakfast or have fun activities on those Better Together days. The employees enjoy it and find it value of being in an office, seeing and working next to their coworkers. Our employee turnover ratio remains very, very low. Regarding the recruiting of new employees, we've taken a much more proactive approach to the timing. So monthly, we are tracking statistical metrics associated with each of our servicing functions. And when we project that we're about 90 to 120 days away from needing to add an employee, we start the recruiting process. So it's very proactive. Prior to COVID, the pandemic, we were much more reactive. Additionally, we have gone to hiring a lot of part-time employees, those still in school and have some capacity to work, with the notion that when we need a full-time employee, we kind of time it up so that they'll be available to become a full-time. That it's not only in the summer months, but it's throughout the school year also. That strategy, coupled with obviously a very focused development and training program, has been very effective for us. The overall FTE costs have, as everyone knows, have risen. But again, we consider our employees the biggest asset in our outsourced servicing value chain. And so we provide the people, process, and systems as part of our servicing solution. So people are very, very important, and we're going to invest in those assets. Our clients don't have to worry about adding or retaining employees in our model. We do it, and we think we have been very successful in fulfilling that responsibility on behalf of our clients. So we own the responsibility of managing, the FTEs, our biggest asset, the people.
That's great. And it removes that burden from your clients, which is awesome.
It does.
So many listeners will probably understand the concept of outsourcing, but they might struggle to visualize the execution of it. Can you share a high-level success story of a client who transitioned to your services, and what was their breaking point before they called you?
Yeah, we've got a few of them, but when a prospective client calls us or we get in touch with them and they want to move the servicing from either an in-house model or from another outsourcer, it's almost always a result of performance, execution, lack of technology, or just their service levels. They're not meeting their customer demands. So when we work with a new prospective client, we first of all start out and discuss our technology stack, our capabilities. We also have, we talk about our operational excellence culture, which is monitored by an internal scorecard. So we know every month if we're running at an A minus, B plus, et cetera. We show our service level historic results. We talk a lot about our portfolio transition approaches and the performance of past transitions, where the skeletons may lie, what are some things we want to address, some of the things we want to stay away from. And the biggest things, we allow access to our people, as I talked about earlier. Oftentimes it results in an onboarding opportunity, but I would also say we have many prospective clients who are just starting up as a new company and want to consider a turnkey outsourced solution versus incurring fixed costs and an extended time frame to spin up an insourced option. There are easily recognizable value add opportunities in those situations. Within 30 days, they can be originating business and utilizing our third-party outsourced platform. Our largest client today was a startup opportunity. So we take pride in in understanding what our clients need and then growing with our clients and making sure that we continue to deliver, through a measured value approach, enhanced systems, quality processes, and obviously keeping up on our employees through experienced and knowledgeable employees.
That's right. So when you're talking to a prospective client, what are some of the most common misconceptions that they usually have about third-party servicing?
Yeah, that they come up in every relationship, and here's just a few of the themes that we hear. It's I don't want to give up control of my customers, so that's probably the biggest one. Will a non-customized outsourced technology stack meet our needs and our customer needs? How do I monitor your performance as an outsourcer? How do I know if you're doing well? How do I know if you're not doing well? Will I have access to the data and the system information? How do I keep in tune and manage, my portfolio? Your people won't understand our customer base, and so that's probably a big one. And then lastly, the costs are too high. People don't look at the fact that it's more than, when you compare costs, it's more than the systems. It's also the people and the processes. Are your processes audited? Are they documented? All that stuff. So I'm sure there's many others that we've heard also, but those are probably the most prevalent ones, the most common. And then, obviously, since we've heard them so many times, we've certainly have either marketing material or, responses to each of these so that we address any and all of their misconceptions.
So we kind of already hit on this next question I'm about to ask you, but beyond just saving money, what are the strategic benefits that get you most excited when a partnership is running at its full potential?
Yeah, we have talked on it, so I'll just briefly mention, one of the things that we do is we talk to our clients all the time. We're staying in touch with them, and I really enjoy hearing feedback from our clients that they wouldn't be as successful as they are today without their servicing partnership with Great America Portfolio Services. That to me is the ultimate barometer of a value add partnership. It tells us we are doing our job and fulfilling our mission of helping our clients achieve greater success. Recently, we went through a technology upgrade. It was our responsibility, and we did not require any effort or cost from our clients. So that's another thing that I think people didn't realize, is that, a lot of our clients had made the comment that, oh my gosh, this is going to be very chaotic, traumatic, etc. And to be honest with you, we kept it behind the curtain, and the upgrade went, very smooth. So those are just a couple of things that I think are from us. We get excited when we are able to kind of share that and hear those stories from our clients, that they're very, very happy with the fact that we're handling the upgrades and we're adding value to their overall model.
Yeah, not having to go through your own technology upgrade is definitely a benefit for sure for anybody.
Yeah.
So, for a company that might be handling everything in-house currently, but they're starting to feel the strain of that, what is the first test case or department that they should consider outsourcing to see if it's a good fit?
Yeah, for us, it all starts with doing a needs analysis and kind of a gap analysis with the technology. Will our technology stack meet their strategic goals and serve their customers? Then what are some of the future enhancements that we are going to bring to the table just naturally in our roadmap of technology investment? So that's the first conversations that we usually have is, how's our technology going to meet your needs? So when our technology stack is determined that it's going to meet their needs, and then the next conversation is really, how do we integrate that into our clients' already technology, maybe their front end system or their back end ledger system, and make sure that it cohesively fits in and it complements the front end, back end. We fulfill that need in the middle. Other the other solutions kind of follow, but I would say technology and how we fit into their whole picture is really the test to see if outsourcing is a fit for a future prospective client.
Awesome. So where do you see third-party servicing headed in the next 3 to 5 years as digital transformation continues to accelerate?
Well, first of all, I mean, you can kind of hear the passion, see the excitement. We're really excited about the growth opportunities and the continued acceptance of an outsourced servicing business model. Our parent company also sees that, and as a result, they're really looking to invest in our company and see where we can take this. So I think the market will be out there. But if we see the same trends that we've seen in the past 3 to 5 years, there's going to be ample opportunities that, are going to surface. And a lot of those opportunities, that maybe they aren't there today or aren't even being contemplated. They're not really thought of today. They'll just, something will come up through a very innovative thought process or an innovative opportunity that one of our prospective clients brings to the table, and then it obviously spurns or snowballs into a bigger opportunity. So it'll be our priority and job to continue to create strategic opportunities and be on the edge of innovation in order to recognize those opportunities when they come and subsequently capitalize on those opportunities. Digital transformation has eliminated a lot of barriers recently regarding the acceptance of outsourcing as a servicing option. Even on these, Zoom calls, team calls, we're very, very close to our customers. Digital transformation. I talked about integrations to the front end, integrations on the back end, providing daily data extracts, et cetera. So, I think as long as we continue to break down those barriers that existed, 3, 7, 5 years back, I think there's also going to be even more opportunities down the road. So we continue to provide, technology enhancements and innovative integrations. We couple that with our experienced people and our high service levels to really partner with our clients for a meaningful and measured servicing solution. And it's all geared towards their success, and as long as they're successful, we as their outsourced partner are going to be successful. They grow, we grow. So
That's great. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. If listeners out there want to learn more about your company or you, what's the best way that they can reach out to you?
Sure. Best way is obviously we have a website out there, and we'll get that obviously out there as part of this. But for the most part, website, or you just call me directly, or call any of our cohorts within the company. We'd gladly have a discussion with you. And obviously, we're also available at a lot of the association events, and happy to meet with you there too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast. It's been great talking with you.
Okay. Thank you, Rita.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.